You saw the title, and today we're going to be talking about whether or not your science teacher would like your podcast, would like the direction of your podcast, and most importantly, would like the way that you are measuring your podcast success. Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 169, would your science teacher be proud of your podcast? I do not remember my science teacher's name, I'm sure I had many over the years. I do not necessarily remember them, and science was not my favorite subject. But there are some things that I have taken from science, and I do believe they have helped me to become a better podcaster. I will never forget a friend of mine who is somebody who is successful, I'll put it that way, and they're a successful content creator. When I first started talking to this person, before they were a friend of mine, they were telling me about how they had success on their social media. And we said, well, how did it happen? And they said, I don't know. One of my first posts ever just went viral, and that was it. And we said, well, do you measure anything? Are you ever looking into the analytics? Are you looking into the stats? And he said, no, I don't even know how to do that yet. And it was a really interesting thing because so many people end up in that boat. I've said this many times. You do not want to get lucky. Because oftentimes the people who get lucky don't have the ways to measure their luck, and they don't know how they got there, and they don't have the skills to continue that. And he started tracking and measuring his stuff, and he has since become way, way, way more successful. So we were doing an episode for Next Level University, and we were talking about how one of the best things in terms of pure external success is becoming more logical, more numbers-based, and having a deeper understanding in math. And I think that's a really good perspective to have for a podcast as well. And all I mean by that, the reason I'm talking about science and would your science teacher be proud, is because the scientific method is I make a prediction, I test whether or not my prediction is correct, and then I adjust accordingly. That's really all a system is. That's the way systems thinking works. I think something is going to go a certain way. I test that certain thing. I measure whether or not it did, and then I perfect my thing moving forward. I fix the system. So essentially, in my mind, there's three levels of podcasting, and there's three levels of podcasters. One is you just do content, and that's it. You record the content, you send it out to the world, and you hope for the best. I think the second level is you record the content, you do a good job of sending it out to the guest, and then essentially you don't learn anymore. So you're going above and beyond what the average podcaster is doing, but you don't ever get to the next level. And that next level is you're testing all the time. And you're making predictions, and you have the confidence to understand that in the short run, it might look like you're quote-unquote losing, but you're going to have so many more lessons, and you're going to have so many more wins. Even this title, and it's a really good way to think about it, this title, would your science teacher be proud of your podcast? Not a great title. It could work, but it might not work. I want to test it because to me, I don't want to do another episode on 3 ways to blah, blah, blah. I want to do something different. And my prediction is this is something that might catch attention. Let me see. Let me see if I'm accurate on that. I think that's the level of podcaster we aspire to. That's the level of everything we aspire to. You're able to make a prediction. You test the prediction. You measure it. And then you revamp. I'm somebody who loves fitness. Same thing. I believe if I go in, I'm going to do this. I think I can lift this weight. Let me try it. Okay, I tried it, went better than expected. Next time I can do it differently or add more weight or whatever it is. Any recipes, same thing. I believe if I put all these things together and I cook it at this temperature, it'll come out being this. Okay, I did all that and it didn't come out that way. Now I have to start changing things. But the prediction is 15 minutes is too short. 25 minutes is too long, 20 minutes is a sweet spot. And I think that's the level that we all should try to get to because as I've gotten the opportunity to work with higher and higher level clients, the thing I have realized is the higher you get, the more tracking there is. So one of our biggest clients, we have weekly meetings and we go over analytics, and there's so many things that we're looking at, and everything is tracked and everything is measured. And the conversations are always, what do we think will happen if we do this? What do we think will happen if we do this? But some of the people I first start working with, when I say, okay, how many listens do you have? What's your view duration? All that stuff. A lot of them don't have those numbers. They don't even know where to look yet. And again, no shame on that. We're all there. We're all there at one point. But that's most likely not going to lead to you having a super successful podcast. Just like if you don't measure your finances, I would not predict you being very wealthy. Just like if you don't have certain measurements in your relationship, I'll put it this way. I don't expect you to be way more successful than other people in that thing. You can have a successful relationship without having measurements. You can have extra money in the bank without tracking your finances very, very, very diligently. And if you want to get to the next level, you're going to have to do next level tracking. So essentially what we're trying to get land here today is the scientific method. Guess and check, guess and check, guess and check. And understand, going back to what we've talked about previously, 80% of what you do is awesome. I know this is going to work. 20% might be different changes. I've started different social media content recently. It's actually going better than I expected. I thought it would do well. It's going better than expected. Now, the next conversation is, do I put that into my workflow and make sure I do it consistently? And that's a whole nother thing. But that's really my thought. There's so many, here's a tactic, here's a tactic, here's a tactic, here's a behavior, all of that stuff. There's so much of that. But that's not really what you need. You probably need an understanding that you're not going to feel like you're winning all the time, and that's okay. And sometimes winning is learning. So if you're learning about the process, if you realize, oh, this buzzword doesn't work anymore. Oh, titling my episodes this way doesn't work anymore. Predict what you think will work, test it, and then get that information. So it's really predict, test, measure, repredict. That's it. With everything that you do. I think this is going to be a really good question to ask this guest. I'm going to test it. Damn, that sucked. Okay, let me make a prediction for the next time. Let me do that. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I think that's the best way to do it. But you have to be willing to take an L from time to time because you are making these private guesses public. Now, people aren't going to know that's what you're doing behind the scenes, but if this episode doesn't get any listens, I'll know maybe it's because of the title. And maybe I won't try that again. Or maybe I will. It just maybe depends on how long. How many times can I say maybe in one sentence? So that's really what I'm digging at in this episode. That's really it. This will be a short one because, again, I don't want to beat this too much. I don't think it's super, super complicated, but I think a lot of us feel like we need the permission from someone to say, look, I would rather you try 100 different things and find out 15 of them work than just find one thing and just run it forever because it works, but it doesn't mean it's the best. And I want you to get intuition of podcasting.
Hello, my name is Dr. Tarryn McCarthy, and I'm host of the Business of Happiness podcast. When I met Kevin and Alan 2 years ago, I had no idea of how much impact they would have not only on the success for my business, but also on my life. They've given me enormous perspective and true strategies, true tactics to take in my everyday business plan and in my life plan to make an even greater success. Kevin and Alan, thank you so much. I couldn't even begin to express my gratitude for all you've done for me. And if you're looking for similar mentorship, I highly recommend these incredible experts at the Next Level University.
Intuition, there's something called intuitive eating. And all intuitive eating essentially is listen to your body. Yes, and it also requires a pretty deep level of understanding of what your body needs. Same for podcasting, same for everything. Intuitively, when I get under a certain amount of weight at the gym, I know whether I can lift it or not. If you've never lifted weights before, you probably don't have the same level of intuition. Intuitively, you know what your baby wants way better than I do, because I have not had to hone that skill. Intuitively, what does your audience need? The only real way, in my opinion, to build intuition, in this case, is through trial and error, and it's through prediction and measurement and saying, I was righter than I thought, I was wronger than I thought, here's what I'm going to do moving forward, and the same thing happens. If you're getting righter every time, if you're getting a little bit more right, that's a win. That is what we want. That is what we're aiming for. If you're getting more wrong, that means your predictions are off and the science project is not necessarily working. So we have to shift some things. But that is the beautiful side, is you can just keep doing this for as long as you want. We still are testing out stuff. Now it's different than it used to be. And I'm in a different place where I just kind of want to create the content that I like on the other podcast front. I don't want to have to go through and think of every title and make sure it's this, and is this too much curiosity, too much certainty? I don't necessarily want to do that. I've done that for many episodes. And I'm still probably doing that more than the average podcaster. But I don't want to play that game to the depths that a lot of people are. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's part one. And part two, most people are way under on this. So I think everybody moving towards a more strategic plan is probably a good place to be anyway. I'm not worried about you clickbaiting. Some of you will. Most of you won't. And that's not my style, so that's not what I teach, but I know some of you will do that because that's just the nature of it. And again, to each their own. So big takeaway, big lessons, big tactics. What do we do with this? Decide today that you're going to try something new. It's going to be social. It's going to be questions for guests. It's going to be episode titles, thumbnails, whatever it is. And go do that. But before you do it, make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen? Okay, measure it. And it's going to take time, right? You're not going to necessarily see something immediate. You're not going to do an episode and say, oh my goodness, my view duration went from 20% to 75%. I'm the best. It most likely won't work that way. But if you measure it long enough, it will either trend up or it'll trend down. One of the things I'm doing a lot with clients is doing thumbnails. So I will look on YouTube for the 7-day, 28-day, and 90-day trends. The 7-day trends don't really matter that much because if you drop one episode every 7 days, the data is very skewed. 28 days is going to tell us what has happened over the last 4 episodes, but 90, that's going to give us, I don't know, what's that? 11 weeks of data. 12 weeks of data. Almost 13. So it's going to give us a good amount of data. It's going to give us 3 months of data. If the click-through rate is higher and trending up, that's a really good suggestion. But it took us 3 months to get that data. So we have to test something. We have to commit to that test for a while. Now, social media has got a shorter cycle, so you can literally pick up your phone and just do a really strong hook. Pick up your phone right now, whatever your niche is, do a really strong hook. You will never succeed with this type of thinking, and here's why, and then go into it. If you have a strong hook, you most likely will get more views because the algorithm will reward you almost immediately, and then you can have that one measurement, and then you can take it from there. So, high level, most of the big channels, big podcasts are measuring way more than you think. They are measuring everything. They're split testing hundreds of thumbnails. It is mayhem behind the scenes. You would just never know it. That's part one. Part two, you have to commit to whatever the test is for however long it takes before you get a reward. Social media is much quicker. YouTube and the podcast, it depends. It depends on what you're measuring and how often you're measuring it. And then understand that you're going to take some L's, but those lessons go into a bag that become valuable later. It just sucks in the moment. I've taken more losses than I have wins. You haven't seen most of them because they've been behind the scenes, but I have definitely felt them. And you will too. Doesn't have to be to the same degree. It doesn't have to be the same amount I have. But that is my thought for today's episode. And that's my challenge to you. My challenge to you is I don't want you just to be a podcaster. I want you to be a successful podcaster, whatever that means to you. And most likely, there are gaps in your thinking, just like there are still gaps in my thinking. I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I know way more than I used to, but there's still stuff that I don't know, and there's still stuff that I need to learn, and I'm working on myself, and I have to do that all the time because I want to be the best podcaster possible. I want to be the best podcast coach possible. I want this podcast to be the best it can be. And honestly, I have to put my money where my mouth is, for lack of better phrasing, and do more of that with this content. I don't do that a ton because there's so much other stuff going on, right? Again, I'm not impressed by myself. 170 episodes or 169 episodes, awesome. But there's so much to go with this podcast. There's so much to go because I have very high standards for what I'm trying to create. So enough about me. All right. If you are struggling with this, if you don't know what to measure, whatever, if you feel like you're stuck in any way, shape, or form, I will have my link below for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. I'm not going to sell you anything. I just want to add value. And you'll be able to email me whenever you want. I tell people that all the time. Just email me if you have any questions. I'm happy to give you my email and we can remain connected there. I'm happy to give you my WhatsApp. I batch my WhatsApp every day, whatever it is. Podcast Growth Nation, a Facebook group of like-minded podcasters, a great place to be. And group coaching is starting October 7th, I believe. So it is the Next Level Podcast Accelerator. Would love to have you in there. Again, email me, DM me for more information on that. I hope that you're testing. I hope that you're testing stuff because you can't just play the hits. You can't just play the hits. You have to test out different stuff. You have to see what works. You have to see what doesn't. And who knows? Something that you haven't practiced yet, something that you haven't tested yet might be the most successful thing you ever do. Most likely will be, believe it or not. All right. As always, keep on crushing it. Keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all next week.